Darkrai is getting unbanned in Gen 9 after more than 15 years in the Ubers tier. For the first time ever, Darkrai will be available to use in OU. I can scarcely believe it, folks. You folks are probably used to seeing the OU Council vote to ban on things, but this time they're voting on what to unban when DLC releases. Most of these are Pokemon that were banned in the past that they want to retest with the release of the new DLC, which will shake up the metagame a lot. Even Zamazenta Crown was tested in OU briefly. Darkrai has never been OU. And amazingly, the vote was unanimous. Every single member of the council wants to unban Darkrai and test it in OU. Before we talk about Darkrai, I'd like to briefly touch on these three fellows who will also be unbanned. These three Pokemon definitely don't feel like Ubers. They've all had a history of being in OU, especially Gliscor and Volcarona, who were ranked in OU for many generations. So I think it makes a lot of sense to retest these ones. I mean, the metagame is going to be completely different. There's so many new Pokemon and returning Pokemon. It's possible that checks to Roaring Moon and Volcarona could rise up, making them more manageable. Gliscor, its biggest issue is that very little can actually threaten it because there's no hidden power anymore, and ice coverage and ice type threats are pretty uncommon in the current metagame. What if there's some new offensive Pokemon that emerges and it's really common and it can threaten Gliscor directly? That'll make this Pokemon much less of an issue. It's interesting that Zamazenta Crowned was not retested. I mean, Zamazenta Regular is in the metagame and they're very similar. I don't think Zamazenta Crowned is much better. I think it would have been okay to retest this one, but the council disagrees, I suppose. This was one of the closer votes too. You could maybe make a case to retest Baxcalibur. I mean, it works pretty similarly to something like Volcarona. Maybe in a new metagame it'll be more reasonable and easy to deal with. I don't feel too strongly about that though. I'm not upset or anything. And Sneasler and Urshifu I also agree should stay banned. Those Pokemon are absurd. It is crazy to think that Darkrai is going to be ranked in OU, but honestly when you look at this guy's stats, they're not that impressive by modern standards. I mean, compare Darkrai's stats to some of the top threats of OU, Dragapult and Iron Valiant. We have really good speed, really good special attack, and not the best bulk. But look at Dragapult. I mean, the bulk is similar. It has way higher speed, worse special attack, good attack. I think Dragapult is a better Pokemon than Darkrai in OU. And you know, Iron Valiant may be significantly slower, but it has the benefit of being able to use booster energy. It has way better stab types, more coverage. I also think Iron Valiant is a better Pokemon than Darkrai in OU. The whole gimmick of Darkrai is that it's a sleep Pokemon. It used to have an 80 accuracy sleep move, Dark Void, which in conjunction with Bad Dreams deals passive damage to sleeping foes, which was really strong. This was a great Pokemon in Gen 4 Ubers in its debut game. In Gen 7, Dark Void was nerfed to 50 accuracy because of its dominance in doubles. Smeargle would use this move to put both enemies to sleep with 80 accuracy, which was really OP. And for some reason they double nerfed this move, which is very bizarre. They added this modifier that only Darkrai can use this move, meaning a Smeargle that copied the move with Sketch and tried to use it would have no effect. I think that alone would have solved the VGC problem of Smeargle using Dark Void, but they also nerfed its accuracy to 50. So Darkrai basically lost its whole identity. Now its best sleep move is Hypnosis, which has 60 accuracy, which is not much better at all. So after losing the primary tool that made it stand out among other special attackers in Ubers, it plummeted in usage. It's one of the worst legendaries ever since this change happened, and in Gen 9 it's particularly bad because Miraidon, who sets electric terrain on the field, makes it so that everything on the field is immune to sleep. So even if you wanted to use this with Hypnosis, it would be terrible in the metagame because of how often electric terrain is present. Darkrai was not alone being one of those former powerful Ubers that lost its relevance years later in an increasingly crowded Ubers tier. So a fan-made metagame called Ubers UU rose up recently to combat this issue and to give these Pokemon a home. But even in Ubers UU, Darkrai is really bad. Here it is in low tier, ranked below Pokemon like Sandy Shocks, Cutiefly, excuse me, Komuro. Darkrai is even worse than Azumarill. I mean, Darkrai is terrible even in the tier where you'd think it would be alright. A big reason for that is because Magearna is everywhere in Ubers UU, which is a Pokemon that totally shuts down Darkrai, but still, it's quite tragic to see that, isn't it? I guess it says a lot about how crazy Power Creep is getting that Darkrai is going to be in OU, and it doesn't even sound as broken as stuff like King Gambit or Goldengo, to be honest. But I for one think having Darkrai in OU sounds sounds really fun. I'm pretty excited for this. This metagame is lacking a really good dark type special attacker, and even if you're not using a hypnosis set, just as a straight up special attacker, this sounds really powerful. Obviously, I mean, it is Darkrai. Despite all I've said, this is still a very powerful Pokemon. Dark is one of the best offensive types in the game, and Sludge Bomb is beautiful as complementary coverage to hit fairy types. Psyshock is a great option to hit special walls like Clodsire and Blissey. You could even go a 4-attack set with Focus Blast, and this coverage is really excellent. This hits King Gambit, other dark types, steel types. Maybe you could even do like wide lens with hypnosis and go for the sleep setting set. What's nice about Darkrai is that it actually threatens the sleep switch-ins very well, unlike, you know, Breloom, who struggles a bit against Goldengo, with the only super effective coverage it has being Bulldoze and being quite slow as well. But there's no way Goldengo comes in against a Hypnosis and then just drops to Dark Pulse. What are they doing? Garganical also can't really come in. Hypnosis hits grass types, unlike Spore and Sleep Powder. It's less accurate, but the threat of this could still be really something. I don't know if Bad Dreams is going to come up that often, but it is nice against like rest users such as Dondozo. And of course, if you hypnosis stuff, it's quite good. A set like this sounds like a pretty OP wall breaker. Choice specs with Terra Dark, Dark Pulse spam, that could even break through like Clefables or some of the common fairy types. And with good predicts, you can totally destroy pretty much every switch in. There's also a decent amount in this metagame that can check this. I mean, Zamazenta is really solid. Not only can some sets just outrun Darkrai, it's faster base speed wise. It takes nothing from all of its coverage. It resists Dark Pulse. Focus Blast is only neutral damage, plus it's inaccurate. Sludge Bomb, same deal. And Psyshock, I mean, Zamazenta gets the defense boost. It has high defense to begin with. It's going to shrug that off well, despite it being super effective. And a defense boosted body press or even close combat will just directly threaten Darkrai. It's not fast enough. I also think Tinglu sounds really solid against Darkrai. Darkrai does have Focus Blast, but it's inaccurate, and Tinglu has so much sheer bulk that it can shrug it off decently well. I don't think Darkrai will be fantastic at setting up boosts. It does have Nasty Plot and Calm Mind, which are really good, but it's not particularly bulky, and it's not a particularly high value Terra unless you're doing Terra Dark for more immediate pressure or something like that. I don't think a defensive Terra on this will be as valuable as it is on something like Manaphy or even Volcarona, which is also returning. With ghost types being so central in this metagame, I think it's common that teams are going to have a way to handle Goldengo and Dragapult, and most of those checks will also handle Darkrai by proxy. But unlike ghost types, Darkrai does have the benefit of resisting Sucker Punch from Gingambit and threatening it with Focus Blast or just powerful neutral damage with Dark Pulse. One of the few fast offensive threats that won't be able to be revenge KO'd by a Kingambit Sucker Punch, which actually could maybe be good for the metagame. We will of course have to see this in action. It is Darkrai. There's a chance it just gets banned eventually because it's too broken. It's a legendary, it has really high special attack and a great dark stab type. Me saying that Dragapult and Iron Valiant are better Pokemon, that might age terribly. Darkrai might have a reign of terror and get banned. We'll have to see, folks. I don't know. My hunch though is that it won't be that hard to reasonably check this with the way the metagame is right now, at least. I think Zamazenta and Tinglu and other ghost type checks that check Darkrai by proxy will remain relevant in the post DLC 2 metagame enough that Darkrai will be fairly manageable. Well, what do you think, folks? Are you excited about this decision? Are you looking forward to using Darkrai in OU for the first time? Do you think it will end up being rebanned? And what would you like me to talk about next? Let me know down below in the comments. And thank you for watching.
KO by one hit! It scattered Spike!
The money got different, cause of what I'm spending.